He grew up in a normal working-class family in Illinois in the 1940s and 50s. His parents were civic-minded and people who greatly sacrificed for their children. His elementary school teachers called him healthy and well-adjusted. An elementary school test placed his IQ at 167, which is genius level, and he skipped 6th grade, which led to him not fitting in with his classmates and being bullied. Nevertheless, in high school, he became a math prodigy. He skipped 11th grade, graduated at 15, and was accepted for a scholarship at Harvard, where he entered at the age of 16. I'm talking about Theodore or Ted Kaczynski, the man who went on to become the horrific domestic terrorist known as the Unabomber. Hi, I'm Tamworth Grice. Welcome to my channel, the Tamworth Grice Files, a place where you will find cases that are spooky, macabre, fascinating, supernatural, and just plain weird. And in each instance, I have a personal connection to the story, so be sure to stick around to the end to hear about that. As the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski injured 23 innocent people and murdered 3 more with homemade bombs mostly sent through the mail between 1978 and 1995. His earliest victims were individuals at universities and passengers on an airplane, so the FBI abbreviated University, Airline, and Bomb and labeled him the Unabomber. He later targeted individuals in technology, engineering, and other professional roles that he associated with modern industrial society, which he considered to be evil. A sketch of Kaczynski was widely circulated, but it took the FBI nearly 2 decades to identify and capture him, and that only happened because his younger brother, David, recognized his ideas and writing style when his manifesto was published in newspapers. Before most people even heard the term Unabomber, Kaczynski was a teenager at Harvard, participating in a study under psychologist Dr. Henry Murray. The psychologist began when Kaczynski, who was only 17 and younger than any of the study's other 21 subjects, was told he'd been chosen for participation in part because of his high intelligence and interesting ideas. Murray had weekly meetings with Kaczynski during which he explored and showed extreme interest in the teen's theories and thought processes. These meetings went on for months until the experiment shifted to phase 2. During phase 2, Kaczynski was subject to what Murray himself called sweeping and personally abusive attacks. Kaczynski's stress was measured with electrodes on his head as the ideas he shared trustingly with Murray were vehemently insulted, ridiculed, and demeaned. Murray's study was intentionally designed to cause and observe stress response in its objects, but by modern standards, the study is considered unethical. And remember, in Kaczynski's case, Murray was experimenting on a minor, someone who's only 17 years old. Investigators suggest these experiments at Harvard may have been part of the CIA's Project MKUltra. And during World War II, Murray worked for the organization that was the predecessor of the CIA. Launched at the height of the Cold War, Project MKUltra sought to provide the U.S. with an edge over the Soviet Union in terms of psychological warfare by any means necessary. MKUltra was the CIA's experimentation program designed to discover ways to demoralize and psychologically torture individuals as a way of forcing confessions via brainwashing and other practices. The study also involved giving drugs, including LSD, to subjects without their consent. Several deaths have been attributed to Project MKUltra, or at least associated with it. For example, Frank Olson, an Army biochemist, was given the drug LSD without his knowledge, and he died as a result of falling from a 13th-story window. The MKUltra program was later found to be illegal and has been criticized as a violation of individual rights because there was no consent by the subjects. The CIA later intentionally destroyed most of the records related to the project. Therefore, there exists no direct evidence linking Murray to the Project MKUltra study. Alston Chase, a writer and scholar specializing in intellectual history, has said Kaczynski's unfortunate and degrading experiences and psychological stress as a 17-year-old in Murray's study led to his terrorist activities in later life. As Chase put it, in 1958, a brilliant but socially inept teenager, Ted Kaczynski, began his studies at Harvard. He volunteered for a number of psychology tests, including Project MKUltra, or what may have been part of Project MKUltra, in return for a small fee. But these were no ordinary tests. However, Kaczynski was always adamant in denying that the experiment had a negative impact on him. In fact, he said that throughout the study, he only had about 30 minutes of unpleasantness, and he continued to admire Professor Murray, although the professor had verbally and psychologically abused him over an extended period of time. So, what is my connection to all this? Well, first, when I was in college, in the introductory psychology course, I took part in experiments. I think the number was 6 experiments. These were required and were part of our grade. Note that the experiments were not optional. You had to do them if you wanted to pass the course, Psych 101. Although none was anywhere near as traumatic as what Kaczynski endured, and Project MKUltra had been disbanded, some of the studies were intended to induce and measure stress. I remember one where I was hooked up to electrode-like things on my head and arms. Then words flashed on a screen in front of me. I think I was supposed to remember and repeat the words. This was long ago, and I don't remember the exact experiment. But the thing I do remember was that the words began coming faster and faster until I couldn't keep up with what was going on. It was extremely stressful. Afterward, when they disconnected me from the electrodes, I couldn't get out of the psych building fast enough. My other connection involves Kaczynski's brother, David Kaczynski, the man who turned him in when he recognized the ideas and the rhetoric in Kaczynski's published 35,000-word manifesto about the evils of technology. After his schooling, during which he gained a PhD, Kaczynski taught mathematics at the University of California at Berkeley. But he resigned his position after only 2 years, and in 1971, he moved to a remote cabin without electricity or running water in rural Montana. His brother David, 7 years younger, co-signed to buy the land and helped build his brother's cabin, where the Unabomber lived mostly as a recluse while building his horrific mail bombs, unbeknownst to David. Like his older brother, at one point David also rejected society and lived as a recluse. David bought land in Texas, where he found the desert wind precluded tent living. So for a while, he lived in what was literally a hole in the ground covered by metal sheets. However, after his father's death, he gave up his isolated lifestyle, returned to society, and got married. A Tibetan Buddhist, David later became executive director of Karma Triyana Dharmachakra, a Tibetan Buddhist monastery located in Woodstock, New York. And that's where my life intersected with David's. I've been interested in Buddhism since my teens, but a few years ago, as that interest increased, I phoned the monastery for more information. Somehow, I was put through to the executive director, David Kaczynski. We spoke for quite a while about Tibetan Buddhism in general and about the retreats the monastery offered, which were also available to women. I'm sure I was given his name when I called, but I never connected him with the man who had turned in the Unabomber and who was his brother. So, what do you think? Was Professor Henry Murray working for the CIA when he was at Harvard? Were his experiments part of MKUltra? Was the treatment of his subjects, especially Kaczynski, who was still a minor, unethical? Do you think Kaczynski's participation in the study contributed to Kaczynski's later horrific terrorism? Did you ever participate in a psychological experiment? If so, what was that like for you? Please leave your answers in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, like, sign up for notifications, and spread the word about this channel. Also, let me know in the comments if there are other cases you want me to explore. Your attention and support mean the world to me. I love and appreciate you all for watching, and I hope you'll return to view the next video in the Tamworth Grice Files. This is Tamworth Grice signing off. Until next time, stay wonderful, stay weird, and have beautiful dreams.